Amundsen. So he sets sail for this expedition to drift through or to get to the Arctic. He reads or hears that Perry's got there all first. Already, Scott has mounted his expedition, Markham blessing this, the Queen and King, everybody celebrating all of this. He's off to Antarctica, and it's Amundsen who steals the run against him and gets to the ice first. Is that correct?
Yes, that's exactly the situation. Scott has this massive expedition, massive on the standards back then. There were 33 men stationed in Antarctica, many more on the ship taking them down, and they plan to do, because they want to do it in proper British fashion, they intend to do a complete research program, do geology, oceanography, meteorology, terrestrial magnetism. They have a complex expedition, and they sort of then want to also make it to the South Pole, but in proper British fashion, doing research along the way. And they had Amundsen has said he was going to the North Pole, and then Perry claims he's made it to the North Pole. People doubt the claim, but what can you say? And so the glory of reaching the North Pole is taken away. Well, he says, I'm still going to try to do it because I'm going to try to do it right or something. But what he really does is he shifts his planning. He tells no one but his brother knows. And he's instead, to get to the North Pole, according to his drift, the way he can make the trick work is you're all the way up in Norway, but if you're going to drift a ship through the circling pack ice of the North Pole, the only way to try to get there is to start above Alaska. So he says he's going to have to sail all the way around South America, which is what he claimed he was going to do, get up to above Alaska, go through Nome and go up there, and then impact his ship, Nansen's ship actually, the Fram, and float up, hopefully through the ice currents to get up toward the North Pole and then set off and reach there. That's the plan. But, of course, he's already decided. He didn't even tell his men. He's already decided that once he gets down there, he's just going to head on down to the Ross Sea, British domain, British territory, claimed by Britain, head down to the Ross Sea, and then head to the South Pole. Of course, it's the same equipment, same dogs and everything that they're going to pull his sleds. But that's his plan. He doesn't tell Scott until he's on an island, basically in the Atlantic. He has his brother send a telegraph to Scott, who will get the telegraph at his last landing spot, Melbourne, Australia, before he heads down on his ship.
Right. The telegram was, beg to inform you, Fram proceeding Antarctic, Amundsen. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, Ed. You just can't.
No. And he had to be worded that way because the telegram, of course, was sent by his brother.
Right.
And that's the way it just says Amundsen, and that's all it says. And other than that is, you get it and you wonder, proceeding Antarctica, what does he mean? Right.
He means that there's a race. And now Scott, who's bringing along, small ponies instead of dogs. Amundsen had dogs for the North. And all this scientific equipment and this huge accounting that it was going to have to deliver it at the Albert Hall or whatever, the fantasy of her heroism at the time. He is just days behind or weeks behind Amundsen. Does the world know that there's a race? Does London have the news the moment that Scott does, that there's a race to the South Pole, Ed?
Yes. What happens is once he's too far to turn back, once there's no way the Norwegian government or anybody can call him back on his last point of land, last island, it's in the South Atlantic, what he does is from that island, his brother heads back, while he heads south. So his brother, when he gets back, he telegraphs Scott with that cryptic message as you saw, but at the same time he delivers a letter to Nansen and another letter to the King of Norway and a letter to the Norwegian people explaining what he's doing. And immediately, of course, this is the days of races. There were car races, great car races across Russia or across the United States. Cars were just new then. And there were, of course, this is the days when you had airplane races. And so this idea of an international competition, the first to cross the Atlantic in an airplane, or the first to drive across from Asia, from China to Britain, people were used to this. And so here, suddenly the press immediately picks up there's a race between these two parties. Well, when you think about it, it's sort of an unusual race because Scott had no notion that there would be a race.
Right.
He thought he would have no competitor, and so he had planned, a very slow trip down where he would use ponies, he would use tractors, he would use dogs to carry things back and forth, where he would go down with this large body of men and ponies and dogs and tractors, and what they do is they would go part way with them, this Greek group, and then they drop their supplies and turn back, and then the next stage would go a little further, and the next stage would go a little further. So he had these teams of men and ponies and dogs and tractors, and then in the end, when they reached up at the top of the Beardmore Glacier, the last one had turned around, they had left supplies all along, then he would dash with 3 other men was the plan, 4 of them, man-hauling, because Clement Markham was convinced that the only proper way for the British to do it would be to man-haul. It's not, you can't ride there. You have to walk there, and you have to pull your own sled, because that's what they did in the Franklin search.
And that's Markham's imagination. This is a Victorian commanding this. The book is An Empire of Ice, Scott Shackleton and the Heroic Age of Antarctic Science. Edward J. Larson is the author. When we come back, the ultimate payoff is tragedy. I'm John Batchelor. This is The John Batchelor Show.